She's got a nice voice. Hi, you guys, again. Okay, so we're recording and we will get started here. If anybody wants to participate, feel free. So let me preface this with this is our first training call. Basically, it's a series of 3 about our expansion into Australia. Okay, so this first call, I imagine it to be, fairly quick, nothing that you have to write down really quick or take away, no brain busting material. This is really just an intro to what the opportunity could look like, what it may mean, how it may affect your business. Is it right for me? There's been a lot of, and I felt this way when we first launched into Canada in January of 2019. So going into Canada was our first, international expansion. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I say? There's probably already people who are, sending people sample clothes, or there's probably already there must be a certain group of reps who already have access, all these things. And it was very overwhelming. And I'm hearing a lot of that about this expansion into Australia. So I wanted to have this call really as just a way to open it up and help you guys feel comfortable in knowing what this means for you and your business. So not what it means to everybody else, or there's this mad rush of emotion, right? And that's normal. It's adrenaline, it's excitement. I always say when at Summit, when they announced Australia, you saw some people who got their phone out right away and you're like, oh my God, they're sending all the messages and everybody's going to be gone. And this isn't going to work for me. And then we're like, okay, everybody breathe. Let's step back, because that's not the case. And I think we can put together a strategy that could make you as successful as you want to be with this launch. Some of you may be further along than others in it. Some of you guys might literally, this is the first time you're thinking about it. And that's awesome if you are. There is so much success. There is so much growth. There are so many Aussies to go around. And really the first step is just being able to step back, think about it, apply it to you in your life, in your business, and then start to make a couple steps, take a couple steps forward and just get moving just a little bit. Just start making motion. Because right now, a lot of people are just thinking about it and it's overwhelming. And we want to squash that, talk about it, understand it, make a little game plan, and we'll be back here on Wednesday to talk even more tactical steps. Okay. So if you guys want, feel free to put questions in the chat or unmute yourself, but I'm just going to go through really kind of a basic overview for a couple of minutes, and some of the main questions that I have gotten so far regarding this expansion. So first, it's going to be happening soon. Nobody knows when. There's still a lot of details that are getting ironed out or are ironed out, but haven't been shared yet. Let me tell you why. And I don't know any of this information. Everybody literally knows the same thing. Here's the reason, they probably know, what the exchange rate or what the items are going to cost, or, all those little details, but they don't want to share it with 80,000 Zyra reps who could just go blast information everywhere until it's really super official. So they're working with the banks to figure out our commission's going to work perfectly. They're really ironing that out. Some product is on the way. Zach did share that when there was that company-wide call a week or 2 ago about Australia. So a lot of that stuff is still being ironed out, but I want to take it even more broad than that. So some of the questions that we have been hearing, or things that I have felt, and I know other people feel, is what does this expansion mean for me? It can mean basically anything you want it to. It could mean, hey, you know what? Not my thing. Not really sure if I want to dabble in that. Or because you're on this call, you probably want it to affect your business. So it can mean anything you want. It could mean that you start reaching out to people, or creating connections, or asking people who they know. And you could be doing that stuff really right now, right? This could be for you a huge opportunity if you put a strategy into place and you understand why you're doing it. So really it could mean anything you want it to. I hope for me that it means I can find a couple key partners over there who can help share this brand with everybody in Australia. And that's the same for you. So let me back up a step. Nobody has certain access. It's not I heard the other day, well, I'm at higher rep higher up reps already have access, or they'll get the first reps. Like there's got to be some in place over there. Not the case. When the site goes live, which we're going to know 2 weeks beforehand what that actual launch date is, everybody's going to find out at the same time. So if you're talking to people and they decide to enroll when the site goes live in Australia, nobody has like, there's no pre-launch. There's nobody, no double eyes get to have a early launch with people. Like it is literally the same opportunity for somebody who joins today as it is for the top rep in the company. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because there's no reps in Australia yet, right? So somebody who enrolled today, if they really wanted to blow this thing out of the water and they're working their strategy, they're figuring it out, could have more success than somebody who's been here forever, right? So that whole thing is, it's a level playing field is really my point there. How will it all work logistically? So we don't know much on that yet, but what we do know is that there's items being sent there right now to the warehouse, which is going to be in Brisbane. I think I pronounced that correctly. And on Wednesdays, it's going to be the same thing, new release Wednesdays. But they might be different products because the seasons are different. So there might be some stuff that overlaps, like workout tanks and stuff, but we probably won't release winter jackets there when we see them here, just due to the difference. Is this important to me? How could it impact my business? What do I have to offer to others? Is this just your top leaders? Where do I begin? So I would ask you guys to think about why you would want to do it. So going into this, I heard a really good, I went to a leadership conference a couple of weeks ago, and I heard a couple of things that really stuck because I was talking about this Australian opportunity with a couple other people who were at this conference. And then this guy spoke, and it was literally like he was speaking to us. It was incredible. He works with massive, huge ass companies in like California and all over the place. And he helps them identify their micro niche. So how they can really get super focused on their strategy and their offer to the offer that they have, rather than just like trying to like do everything all the time. He said a couple of things. I am not equipped to serve everybody. I think we need to understand that, right? Yeah, of course, there's this entire, country. There's this entire, I think Australia is a continent, right? This entire place of untouched opportunity. So you could look at that and be like, oh my God, it's too big for me to tackle. Or you could set your goal to be laser focused to try to have 2 partners in the first 2 months, whatever you want it to look like. But figure out or understand that you are not equipped to serve everybody. You're not, right? You'd go crazy. He also said anxiety comes from casting a big net. 100% accurate. We can post it, and I encourage you to share that it's happening. I share sometimes like on my social media, my Instagram, like, hey, like, we're launching into Australia, such an incredible opportunity. Is there anyone who that I could have a conversation with? That's casting a big net. If that's the only thing you do and you're waiting for people to respond to that, or like you're waiting for someone to randomly reach out to you from Australia, that's going to cause you anxiety, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm half in, I'm half out, but I posted about it. Like, is that going to work? Like casting a huge net causes anxiety. And he said that literally like 10 minutes after we got done discussing some of the stuff with the launch. And I thought that was really, really impactful. A couple other things he said is get clear with who you are, and then get clear with who you are serving. So get clear with who you are. What's your intention? Do you really want the Rizaya business to be impacted by this launch? Do you really want to take this seriously and have a strategy? Or are you like, hey, if it works out, it works out, but I'm not going to stress about it. You have to align yourself correctly with what your expectations are, and then create your goals around it. Because otherwise you're just going to be overwhelmed, right? Like we can't say, yeah, I want 2 partners in the first 2 months and then post on Instagram and do nothing else. Because then we're just going to have anxiety. We're going to see other people adding partners. We're going to feel behind and we're going to feel burnt out, right? Like that's typically how it happens. So get clear with who you are and be realistic with yourself. If you want to be really strategic and take an hour every day for the next month and do reach outs, and we'll talk about some of this on Wednesday. How do I do reach outs? What do I look for? How do I find people, right? That's everybody's main thing. How do I find people? We're going to talk about that. We're going to figure out how you can make that happen. But first, before you do that, like get clear with who you are and get clear with who you're trying to serve. I typically tend to work with moms who stay at home, moms working from homes, people looking for a different opportunity, people looking for options because maybe they feel stuck, because that was me. I was stuck. I felt stuck. I quit my job. They paid me a bunch of money. I came home. I had no job. My husband didn't have a job at the time. I needed options, and I needed to know that you could live a life by design. That's who I'm looking to serve. I'm not looking to serve someone who's like, yeah, sign me up and I'm going to sign 1,000 million people up after that and see what happens and hope they do good and, throw a bunch of bodies against the wall to see who sticks. That's not who I'm looking to serve. So be clear with, who are you looking to serve? What's your reason for being here? And who are you looking to serve? One other thing that I think is really important that he said, we do not, right, raise your hand. I can't see any of you guys, but if we have, do we have a product for the masses? Yes, we do. We have leggings. Everybody sells leggings. But if your perspective is that we have a product for the masses, that's going to bring you down that kind of street of anxiety comes from casting a huge net, right? What he said was, product, do you have a product for the masses, or do you have an offer for your who? And I was like, holy smokes, that is so powerful. Because if you have a product for the masses, you're gonna be like, everybody listen, you need to do this. And like, you won't have kind of that strategy and like that, your feet aren't going to be on the ground. You're not going to feel grounded and anchored into your approach and your strategy. If you have an offer for your who, I know who my who is. My who is me 3.5 years ago, looking for options, probably a younger mom, probably somebody who really enjoys business, because that was my background, which is much different than Zaya. People are always like, well, you had business, that's why it worked. It's very different. But I know that that is my who. So what's my offer? My offer is this opportunity with Zaya Active in a place that has never had it there before. It's incredible. Like, just keep in mind, like, when we think of some of our top leaders, like Natalie Robison, Chrissy Teiger, Ellie, like so many of those people on this call, Michelle Wolig, like Kelly, Jill, all of you guys, none of them have even enrolled yet, right? In Australia. So I would get hyper focused on what your offer is and who you're providing it to. I know my who, and I know my offer is an opportunity for $295 or whatever it's going to be over there, for $295 to share an activewear brand in a country that loves activewear, who also already pretty much, they're very familiar with social selling. I have that offer for $295 for them to bring to Australia for the first time ever, this activewear and this brand and this opportunity. If somebody came to you and said, hey, listen, I'm going to sell you a Starbucks for $295, okay? And you've been doing it for a couple of years or a couple of weeks, but you kind of understand it. I'm going to give you all the training and resources you need. And guess what? We're going to go open Starbucks up in Australia, and they've never had a cup of Starbucks coffee before. We know it's going to be really successful because it was here. It was in Canada. We know the success is going to happen. We just need people helping facilitate that. So you run a really good store. You know your customers really well. You know your product. Hey, if you want to go find some people in Australia and help them open up Starbucks, and then they're going to help people, we're going to pay you for that, right? Like that's, I truly believe like that is the capacity of the opportunity here. It's humongous. And I'm not, of course that doesn't mean that everybody who enrolls in Australia is going to, want to expand tremendously, but there are going to be people like you guys who are showing up on this call who are going to want that opportunity. And that part is really, really cool. So product for the masses versus offer for my who. Now, when we talk about offer for your who, that doesn't mean like, okay, I'm going to find one person who I think really matches exactly my offer and my who, and I'm just going to talk to that one person. You still have to work, right? So he followed it up by saying, there's a lot of people who hear this and they're, well, I don't want to work that hard. So this sounds great. This isn't a laptop lifestyle, which is what he called it, right? You still have to do the work. So you still have to do the work behind the strategy. It might take you a couple of reach outs. It might take you getting creative. It might take you, it's amazing. When I first started and I was looking on Instagram, I am not against sending cold messages, and we'll get into this stuff on Wednesday. Why? I don't think that they're super creepy, because I put time into it. I use their first name. I kind of study who they are before I message them. And I don't think it's creepy because they don't know what they don't know. Like, I'm offering somebody this incredible opportunity. And like, what if I wouldn't have shared that with them? What if I wouldn't have sent that message? Shala is actually a huge leader in Canada. And I messaged her on Instagram a couple months before our launch there. And I didn't know her well, but I looked at her profile a little bit and I saw she was super fit and cute. She had a son named Caden. And I was like, hey, I don't know if this, would be a fit for you, but there's, whatever, the language. And we'll get into all of that on Wednesday. We'll really get into the nitty gritty. But that could be part of your strategy. Absolutely. But also, I started asking people in my network, hey, my company's actually launching to Australia. Do you happen to know anybody there, or know people who might know someone there? It's amazing, the connections. It's amazing. Like, somebody my mom worked with was like, oh, my friend's niece lives there. She's 26. It's amazing what can happen when you just ask. And again, we'll get into all of that on Wednesday. But I think to make sure, I want to make sure people understand that we need to have a strategy, right? And make sure that you're anchored into it. Don't get distracted by people who are going a million miles an hour. Don't get distracted by feeling like you're behind. That serves zero purpose. Get really excited about why you want to do this. And maybe write down, okay, my goal is in the first 3 months to add 2 to 3 business partners in Australia and help them hit junior rep. If you get super hyper focused on that, you're probably going to make it happen. But if you're like, oh my God, like, I always hear this. I hope I recruit a rock star, or I hope I flip an ace right away, or I hope I find a pot of gold. Sure, you can play that card. You could also go play the slots at the casino. I mean, you usually end up leaving disappointed. But there's that approach, which I think is going to kind of burn people out. I think what we need to do, and I think our team is really, really good at this, is figure out, why am I doing this? Is it stressing me out? Do I even want to do it? Or, okay, this is really exciting to me, and here's my goals, and here's the strategy I'm going to put behind it, and really get grounded in that, and own it, and feel good about it, and be excited about it, and smile about it. Like, that's going to be what gets you success here. So I keep talking. Do you guys have any questions? If you do, go ahead and unmute. But the last thing I want to say is, I think there's a very healthy balance by understanding why you want to do it, getting very specific, getting a strategy, figuring out what your offer is and who your who is, your offer for your who. Also, though, combining hard work with it. If you can do those 2 things in sync, if you can marry those 2 ideas, you're going to have massive success, because you're not just saying like, okay, I have this offer and I know who I want to give it to, and maybe I'll reach out a couple times here and there. Well, you're missing the work component, right? If you have the work component and you're reaching out to 1 million people a day, but you don't even understand why you're doing it or what your offer is or who you want to give it to, then you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out because you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is too much. But if you can understand what your strategy is and then put a lot of fuel behind it, that when those 2 things collide, that is where massive success happens, without question, and consistency, and doing it consistently. So that's kind of the idea. I know that this call was kind of broad, but I hope that it at least helped you maybe kind of figure out, like, how am I going to settle my feet into the situation, and how do I want to pivot to make sure that it feels right for me? And then people on your teams, right? A lot of people are just like, oh, this is too much. Kind of share this idea with them and give them some of this insight and say, okay, step 1, before we even get language, because everybody's like, give me language. I want the language. Sure, I can give you language all day. You can make language up. You can use whatever you want. But if you don't know why you're saying it to somebody, it's not going to feel good. You're going to burn out. It's going to be overwhelming, right? So just kind of think about those things as you guys are working through this. But does anybody have any questions? Was that helpful? Or are you guys like, can we just please get to Wednesday so I can get like all of the tactical stuff down? You can put them in the chat. You can mute yourself. There's got to be some questions. But what I would say for your next steps would be to figure out what your goal is, right? So figure out what your goal is, and then that's not the first step. The first step is get clear on who you are. The second step is get clear with who you are serving, right? He said, right advice doesn't matter. Understanding does first. You can give people info, you can give them advice, but if you don't understand what they need, that's not going to be helpful, including yourself. So 1, get clear with who you are relative to this situation. Number 2, get clear with who you are serving. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That doesn't mean if your who is typically like mine's typically, you know, moms with young kids who are looking for opportunities. I'm talking to a guy who's a baseball player over there. Okay. But he's looking for something that's a new opportunity. He's looking for something that he can add into what he's doing. And then number 3, set your goals. So get clear with who you are, get clear with who you are serving, and then write a goal down. Just start, and you can change it, but just literally get a pen out and write it down. Maybe your goal is 2 to 3 business partners in the first 6 months. Maybe it's 2 to 3 business partners in the first 30 days. Okay, whatever it is, write that down. And then on Wednesday, when we talk more tactical stuff, okay, guys, let's get serious. All the fluff is behind us. Here's how we actually do this shit. Then you can kind of figure out what that's going to look like from a strategy perspective, how much input it's going to take to get the output that you're looking for. But good. I'm glad it reduced your anxiety, because I think there's a lot of that going around right now. And that's tough, man. Like, that's a bad feeling. And oftentimes when you get anxious, right, then you're just like, I'm done. Like, I'm just going to back away from it. So what's better? Being strategic and being clear and adding 1 to 2 business partners in the first 3 months. We're having this false expectation that you're going to add 50 in the first month and you're going to do some posts and then it's not going to happen. And then you're going to feel bad and nothing's ever going to come of it. Right. Okay. Thank you guys for coming to this call. I know this was pretty high level, but I know that if I've been doing Zaya for 3.5 years and I've already lived through an international expansion and I still have some of these feelings, I'm like, I would imagine everybody does. And I feel like this team is just really unique and cool that we don't like that feeling. Like, some people are like, oh my gosh, and that's fine. If you want to go, that's fine. If you want to serve the masses, this is totally up to you how you do the business. But I think it's kind of cool that we're like, oh, I don't know how that feels. Like, I don't know if that feels right. Let's maybe pivot and try to think about this in a different way. So, okay, Wednesday, I hope to see you guys all back. And then Saturday morning, there's going to be another quick call, but hopefully they're short and sweet like this. And next week I'll try to come, or on Wednesday, excuse me, just prepared with at least some language, make it your own, and then maybe a couple different ways. We will have couple different ways that you can try to kind of reach out to a market and understand it and create a strategy. So you guys are the best. I know it's 9:26 where some of you guys are, but have a great night and we will see you guys Wednesday. Bye, guys.